while looking over Amos one more time, and I was never really a biblical scholar before this, as I got through Amos 8, going into 9, I said to myself, something there feels familiar, like the restoration of David. Feels a little bit like the Dionysus movement. That was Thracian, that came down. 2, we need to consolidate that S and Z can be interchangeable, especially medial. That S and SH. I'm going to show you the word over, and then we're going into Genesis 3 again, and you'll see where it's in and not over. And then finally we're going to look at Melkizadek, which means my king righteous, or my king Jupiter. They're beginning to hide this now online because they know that I have tied that in to the promise to Sarah, that it says my king, that she is my king. And finally we're going to talk about the issue of Goyim. In fact, I think I'm going to start there first. And I'm unhappy because something that I just uploaded, it is constantly punctuated as I'm speaking, so that you cannot get a clear understanding of the dynamic of what karma and reincarnation is going to look like. And they're shutting it down so that you don't see it properly. So I'm just going to show you where it is, and then we'll move on. When we go in and see Abraham, and we will see that, it says that Abraham will become father to kings of Goyim. Think of Goyim as gay, guy, gay. This goes through into France. It comes into Rome. It's guy, it's gay. It is the same combination. So what they mean by nations, these tend to be kind of morally loose men. Those are guys, those are gay, those are Goyim. So when he speaks about the nations, he's really speaking about Abraham will become the father of the Goyim. And of course, it's really Abraham, it's not Abraham. That's changed under the Greeks. And Raham is uterus. So we see God entrapping these men. That's what we're looking at. It's like the lowest. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. So Goyim becomes, I guess it's Gio in Italian or Latin. And then it becomes Guy and Goy, and there are certain sound shifts, phonemic sound shifts that are occurring, but that's what we're talking about. So that's where we get gay here. And basically they're just kind of interested in their sensuality, and they're morally loose. And then God goes on to say, but Sarah will become my king, and peoples will come from her. So we're going to see the difference here. I'm representing the Sarah end of it. Let's go in and look at this from Amos. First, I'm going to take you out of this, and I'm going to show you about the Thracians for a moment. Here. The cult of first of all, the cult of Dionysus. There was a close relationship. Remember, the Thracians ruled on what they called Mars. There's the red dragon. All right? Sabazeus, Zeus. It almost looks like the 7 Zeus is worshipped the cults, but here we go. This is a later coming. This is not the Minoans. This is when the tragedies strike, and these violent, even the Romans considered them to be violent. The Thracians, and they bring in the cult of Dionysus. There is a lot of drinking that goes with it. They have the centaur, a lot of orgies. And this cult goes into parts of Israel and the southern part of Israel as well. All right. I just wanted to point out that the Artemis of Ephesus was taken over by the Thracians, by these other people, by the Greeks. And it was originally Tuhepa. So it was men then that began defining what was there. When they say that Bendis represents Hapa or Artemis, this is not correct. The Bendis of Thracian drives men wild with sexuality. So this is not them at all. But they like to make that analogy. Let's come out of this. Let's go into one more cult of Dionysus. All right. And of course, the person who was running against Augusta, and I cannot think of the other man. I believe he was running with Dionysus, and his symbols were centaurs, satyrs, bulls, serpents, tigers, leopards, the ivy, and wine. Let's go into Amos. In this section of Amos, and Amos is still Phoenician in some regards. Here is Adoni. This is my Lord. That's not Adonai. Notice it's not period and I, and it's Adoni. All right. Adonai is my mistress. Let's come through here, and they talk about how the corrupt, the king of Israel, of northern Israel of that time, and his name is Jeroboam, and he's Jeroboam of Israel. So this is Jeroboam, the second one. This is not Jeroboam from right after when Solomon dies. And he talks about this man who's gone through and he's taken over Syria, the Moabites, I guess parts of the Ammonites. And he's, I don't think that's a bad thing per se, but what's happened is that as he's taken them over, his culture is collapsing now because he's assimilating all these people in it. And the Ammonites and the Moabites, we know, are wicked. So what happens, this is where your Sodom and Gomorrah was. And what happens is they go through and they begin, this is not the right spelling for epa. This is not an F that's here. This is an epa, and that was a measurement of wheat. And here we have shekel. I want you to take a look at it. They use a Q here rather than a K. And they have the SH. Here we have a Shabbat, or we have a Sabbath down here. It's interesting how they have Shabbat up here and a Sabbath down here. All right. So they don't always use a K. Sometimes they use a Q. Notice that here is in, because you're going to see this in Genesis 3, in. And here is the word over, ol, for over. But he's talking about the great corruption and how they are cheating people because the epa was in a measurement for grain, which makes perfect sense because epa was over grain, and how what they're doing to it in terms of cheating the poor and how what they're doing with shekels. And the shekel is a Phoenician. That's Phoenician. So we talk about that. Now, when the resolution and when God comes back, and God says that no matter where you go to, I'm going to find you, they talk about the problems of people living in the manna of Beersheba. And of course, in the manners of Beersheba, we know that Hagar went down into Beersheba. This is a problem. Let's come out of this now and let's take a look at what I think is a nod to Dionysus. Let's put us on pause. So, it talks about what happens though they are burying an unseen from their hand of me. She shall take them, and if they are ascending the heavens from there, I shall bring down them. And if they are hiding in summit of Carmel, from there I shall search, and I shall take them. And if they are concealed in front of eyes of me on floor of the sea, from there I shall instruct the serpent, and he bites them. And so no matter where you go to, even if you go down and you're digging into hell, around hell, and if they are burrowing and unseen from their hand of me, I shall take them. Okay? Or the heavens, it doesn't matter. But let's go down. So God is going to look after, and he's going to slay the evil. Or she's going to slay it with the hand. And my Lord, notice it's not Adonai, it's Adoni. Adonai would be my mistress. Let's go down to see, and he complains, and he says, you're not like Cush or the Ethiopians. You should read some of these things. They're not fond of the Cushites. But all of a sudden, it begins to sound like Dionysus. Because remember, at some point, they go in and they make the scripture more palatable to the Greeks and the Romans that are have taken over the area. Because normally when they talk about going into a good land, they talk about it being very productive, the land of milk and honey, where there's bread and the animals graze, all those things. So normally milk and honey, bread, the animals are grazing, it's lush, it's green, it's the El Shaddai, your women are fruitful, all these things. All of a sudden, I will raise up the tabernacle of David. I shall raise up the booth, which is the of David, and the one falling, and I shall, anyway. But all of a sudden it talks about building vines and wine, which is really, really interesting because it's not normal. I mean, they talk about putting vines in and wine in, but normally when the land is not been, if the land has not been doing what it's supposed to be doing, and if it's very corruptible, Micah will tell you, your cities are going because there's nothing you can do with this. But in this case, they're talking about reclaiming these cities, doing what they want to do, putting in all kinds of fruits. They're not concerned about feeding the poor. I mean, it doesn't talk about bread. And he talks about wine and drinking and sweet wine and drinking. And that's Dionysian. So that what they did with that whole restoration doesn't fit right. There's something wrong with it. So let's go in and look at it. And remember, they added things as they were taken on, moved over, did all kinds of stuff. Behold, the days will come during the averment of Yahweh, and he closes one plowing and one reaping and one treading on grapes, and one drawing forth the seed, and they drop the mountains' juice, and all the hills they shall dissolve. So let's look at it plain. This is actually a good translation. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that the plowman shall overtake the reaper, and the treader of grapes him that soweth seed, and the mountains shall drop sweet wine, and all the hills shall melt. This is not normal. And I reverse captivity of my people, Israel, and they build cities, one being desolate. All right, I didn't know they were captive, and they shall dwell. I guess they're captive because he feels that the Moabites and everyone has taken them over. They are desolate, and they dwell, and they plant vineyards, and they drink wine. Or let's read that again. And I reverse captivity of people of me, Israel, and they build cities, and ones being desolated. So they build cities upon the ones that have been desolated, and they dwell, and they plant vineyards, and they drink wine of them, and they make gardens, and they eat fruit of them. And I plant them on ground of them, and not they shall be plucking up further on the ground. Okay, so that's definitely not a God. That's not our God. That's not normal. That's, I think even most Jews would say, that's somebody snuck that in, and that was, a nod to the Dionysus movement, and it was so that when the Greeks that were overseeing you, or when the Romans that were overseeing you read that, because it had to be in the Greek, the Septuagint, there was a nod that said, okay, that's good. But it's not normal to us. I'm just going to take a fast look at this again. Notice when there's the B, because this is a big deal, and you see it in the Lost Book of Nostradamus. It goes right in to Saint Bernard. And it's going to be the impact of B. This is in. See, this is in here. Whoops. And here it's in. And just about every place where you see B, it says in. Because I'm going to take you into Genesis 3. And here, it says ol. That's what over is. And here's another B. And it's in. So ol is over, and every time you see B, it's in. And sometimes here it's in here. Okay, here it's in as well. So we have all these ins going on there. Let's come out of here. Here we go. Remember, seed is the word, it's the ideas that come out. The enmity I am setting between you and between the woman. This is what he's saying to the snake. Which isn't really, it's really not a snake. Between you and to the woman, and between your word of you and what you sow, and between her word of her and what she sows. Seed is he in Hebrew. So even if it's a she, seed, it's a he. He shall hurt you, meaning the serpent, and what you sow, your head, what you sow, and you shall hurt him, his heel. And this is about the speech, the words, let there be, what they create. Now this is where the occult is so strong in here, and you're going to see the difference between the B, and there's no ol for over. To the woman, and it's Isha, he said, to the woman, he said, and this is God, small case. To the woman, he said, to increase, I am increasing, and this is not in grief. This is the same thing for the man. Let's take a look at that. But let me first do this. I am increasing, this is hard labor, backbreaking labor. I'm increasing in grief of you, and, that is an end, and in pregnancy of you. All right. In grief, there's the B. All right, beef. In grief, you shall sons. You shall birth sons, and it is sons. And to man, you, impulse, desire of you, and he shall rule. and he shall rule in you. Now, there's no over you. He shall rule in you, meaning he shall rule your impulse. Your husband has to cleave to you. He has to leave his father and mother, and he has to cleave to you. You are going to keep your desires only for your husband. This is not over you. Let's see this word, grief of you. Let's see what it says for Adam. And to Adam he said that you listen to voice of woman. Remember, this is the Greeks have already taken this over. And the tree which I instructed you to say not you shall eat, being cursed, the ground in sake of you, in grief of you. Same thing, same word, in grief. Here we go. So it's not in grief, it's just in hard work. And they have to go back and begin farming grains, which is really backbreaking work. But she's going to be doing that work too, because the woman must work and she has to bear children. So she has a double burden going on here. And to the woman, to increase, I'm increasing, there we go, hard work of you, same as the man, except the you isn't there. And in pregnancy, so she's got to increase hard work of you. She's increasing your work and pregnancy of you. In hard work, you shall birth. Your birthing is going to be hard. Our hips are different than other animals. So there's nothing here that says he rules over her. That means everything that St. Paul attributes is incorrect in that writing. And that's the Greek tradition, folks. Now, Melkizadek is a Canaanite, is an old Canaanite, meaning my king, God, sedeq. Notice there's an S there when it's medial, and it isn't just a Z. Melkizadek. They're already changing some of this here. It's my, Zedek is Jupiter. It's also righteous. Means king righteous, it doesn't. The malki, the I at the end means my. Let's see if it's going to open. Because they've already changed some of these. Now, they should really have my king righteous, because Melkizadek would be king, and this is not the construct case. This is not a masculine construct case, because the masculine construct case would be Meleka, which sounds like a queen, but it's Meleka for the construct case for a man, and it would say that queen, if you wanted it to be king righteous, if you wanted it to be just queen righteous, like that's her name, like Queen Anne, it would be Meleka. So it's not the same thing, and they're deliberately doing this wrong because they don't like how I pointed out the other. So here we go. Let's see when they updated this. And they updated it when? Oh, June the 30th. 2020. Yeah, right. They've been updating things left and right as I put them online. The demons are out. Okay, so let's come in and make sure we understand. Let's come in here. Oh, look at this. It means, was the cult of the city Meleki means Jupiter is my lord or my king. Oh, gee whiz. Alrighty. There we go, Melkizadek. We already know that, I mean, what they do in Wikipedia and some of the others, holy smokes, they go through and change things left and right. They did it in Bible Hub too. I mean, they are just so wicked. Oh, well, this is what spell casting, these are warlocks, by the way. This is how you spell cast. So, Shabbat. My name, Melkizadek, in Hebrew means king of righteous. No, it doesn't. Here we go. So how did we get from here to here? Here it's my king, my lord, Melkizadek. Okay. And we have Melkizedek, literally my king. That's what it is, because the I is at the end, and that's the construct case. Here we have it again. Oh, Bible Hub, even Bible Hub. My king is right, my king. I bet they change it after I go through and do this. They've changed things before after I've pointed them out. Notice there's the S there and not just the Z. It's medial. So you don't always, which brings us to Nazareth. It's Nazareth with either NS. In fact, the ancient consonants are N, S, R, T, Nazareth. There's no Z when they do, just the consonant spelling. Proper name, my king is right, or my king is Jupiter. Notice it's a TS and not a Z there. And there's a Q and not a K. All right, Melkizedek. This is Christian, Hebrew for Christians. And they change things too when I go in and I point things out. But here we go, Melkizedek. Here it's a TZ. We've seen it TSS. Zedek means just or righteous. It also means Jupiter. Malki, the high priest. And it says, Melkizedek, just righteous. Note that it does not mean king of righteousness, as sometimes claimed by Christian theologians, since the word malki contains a possessive personal pronoun. My king, that's the I at the end. Jewish tradition, Melkizedek as Shem. It cannot be Shem, the firstborn of Noah. It's actually Noach. It's not the CH, it's actually just an H, and it's Nach. Who settled in Salem sometime after the Great Flood. That's not possible. All right, because the Great Flood, and that's not possible. So you can see where they have, but what we're crazy stuff going on here. But what we're really looking at is that word maleki, because it is striking, and this is where the people that actually translated that Bible and put it together tried to protect the truth of what needed to come out about her seed. So let's come in and take a look at what it looks like in Genesis 3. Genesis 17. All right. It's actually Abram. All right. It's not Abraham. It is actually Abram. 90 years old, and he is appearing with Yahweh and Abram, and he is saying to him, this is Yahweh, El who suffices, this is El Shaddai, which means God of my land, God of my field. That's what it means. Walk you and faces of me and become you flawless. Well, the male does not become flawless. But remember, this is entrapment. The men who put this together were entrapping the Goyim. All right. And I will make, and I am giving covenant of me, there's the I, between me, I, and between you, and I am increasing you, that's increasing you, and I am exceedingly, really increasing you. And he is failing Abram on his face of him, and he is speaking him, Elohim, which is, notice it's no Elohim here, it's really the feminine version with a masculine ending, which is what they do when there's a little bit of masculine. So Abraham is falling on his face, and he's saying, and behold, covenant of me with you, and you become to father, Abi, of Iman. Now that's like Iman, the god, unless it's Amen. And if it's Amen, then it's the mothers. So here we go. Father throng of Goyim, gays, the guys. So you will become a throng of the guy nations, the heathen nations. And not he, meaning your name, shall be called further, Abram, and he becomes Sham, name of you. And it looks like the same, but it's supposed to be Abraham. Now we have the Raham, which means uterus, and it also means the vulture, and it's a griffin vulture, like Nahabet, which is the chief goddess in Egypt. Interesting. But it's also masculine. How do you make a uterus masculine? And that father of throng of Goyim, I give you. So this is actually entrapment, because remember, I'm telling you, the people that are trying to secure the prophecy so that it can be discovered later have got to put the story out, but they've got to be able to get the information that they need to get out there so that somebody down the line is going to pick up on it. And they know it's going to be the woman because it's in the prophecy in the Bible. So there we go. And then Abraham wants it to be Ishmael. And so here we go. We're going to deal with Sarah. And he is saying Elohim to Abraham, Sarai, now they have it as Sharai, woman of you, not you shall call, name of her, my Sarah, my princess, my noblewoman, that Sarah, just noblewoman, name of her. So he's saying that Abraham is not allowed to call her mine. She's not his possession. He may not do that, and he may not do that mockingly, because he sold her a few times, and he's going to sell her again. Remember, this is the story, but it gets more interesting. And I bless her, and moreover, I give from her to you, that's to you, son. I'm going to give it to her to give to you. And she conceives without Abram's help. And I bless her, and get this, and she becomes to Goyim, and she becomes to the Goyim, to the guys, my king. Notice it's not kings. It's not malachim. Let's go up here and see Abraham. From Abraham will come kings. All right. And I will give thee land. Oops. And he's to have only one son, just Isaac, just the one he's going to give him. And throng of nations I give you. Okay? Father of many nations. And kings. Here we go. Where's the kings? And kings. And kings, malachim. But he's not Abram, or Ibram does not represent God. It's not the kind of king that God wants to represent the higher person. And that's what we have down here with Sarah. And I bless her, and moreover, I give from her to you a son, and I bless her, and she becomes to nations, to the Goyim, to the crazy gays, all those people, my king. Peoples from her they shall become. Isaac gets the land deal. Isaac is supposed to get the land deal. Abram is entrapping the Goyim because he himself does not behave well. Remember, this is the storyline. But she is going to develop, she will represent God, my king. and people will come, not just goyim, human beings, not just crazy, heathen, drunk men, women, screwing around, destroying the earth, but my people, my people. So the Jews are not, they're not God's people yet. I have yet to birth those with the words. And folks, I'm not pulling my words out of thin air here. I pull them directly from other men and from Scripture. So I'm not out there winging it. There you go. So she doesn't conceive. And it isn't until God comes to see her, this is where we're going to find the Nasaret, because God gave Sarah Isaac. It was an immaculate thing. She didn't have sex with Abraham. This is after Abraham sells her again. God goes and causes the king to realize, the king whom Abraham has sold her to, that this is wrong, and the king actually reprimands Abraham for it, and it's in the text. And Yahweh, he visited Sarah, as which he said he's doing Yahweh for Sarah, and at which he spoke. Pardon me. And she is becoming pregnant and giving birth to Sarah for Abraham. There we go. God did it. And this is where the Nasaret, the seed of Sarah, comes from. This is this special divine intervention. And it is a Hurrian, Hattian, very ancient seeds from the actual Noah. That is really Sarah, not Abram. Well, Abram is more Ham. Here we go. That's why we have Abraham. Anyway, no, it is not. Alrighty. Good night. This is, and I have to write to the Senate, to Representative Gabbard and others tomorrow. I'm done with this. Thank you, Jesus.